Welcome to Circuosity. I'm your podcast host, Jim Strader-Sasser, and it's great to have you with me today. Circuosity is a podcast about transformation, beginning with ourselves and then moving into the circles that we wander around in our lives, and how transformation in these places can stretch itself into the world in a broader way. So today, I'd like to talk about independence and freedom, and how those terms may indeed be not offering the liberty that we think we want. So let's begin. Robert Kennedy is quoted as saying, "The United States was born in revolution and nurtured by struggle. Throughout our history, the American people have befriended and supported all those who seek independence and a better way of life." Kennedy, of course, was assassinated in the late 1960s as he sought to become the president of the United States. And I've always admired him for his positions on trying to establish racial freedom and racial equality, along with the other liberal causes that he supported. And yet I wonder whether or not independence as he saw it, and as we think about it, is indeed an ideal to be pursued. July 4th is just around the corner, and it is our annual national celebration of our independence from the British Empire, and our nation's roots are grounded in revolution, as Kennedy suggests. We had to break away from a king who imposed taxes and other forms of oppression upon the American colonialists. And yet, I believe it is a misnomer to suggest that every American is free and equal, and indeed has the same opportunities to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. And maybe that's not even what we would want to be looking for. Unquestionably, many American people deal with all kinds of depressions and despairs and anxieties. And in this free nation, we have some of the highest rates of suicide and of addictions of any similar nation in the world. Why is that? What causes such dilemmas when our nation is grounded in independence? Let's give that some thought. Anglican poet and priest John Donne wrote, "No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a part of the continent, a part of the main." And later on in the poem, he writes, "Any man's death diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee." In Paul's letter to the Galatians, he writes about true freedom, and one of the definitions of understanding true freedom in the early Greek would be not freedom as we understand it, a freedom from oppression or a freedom from imperial rule. Rather, such freedom is to live not as one can, but as one should. And so when I think about these truths in terms of transformation, I think that such independence or such liberty or such freedom is not about being able to do whatever I want, to make the most money that I can, to have the best job that I can, to establish laws that harm other people, or to just go about and live a life that's carefree and careless. Rather, independence in such ways and liberty is really about interdependence with ourselves in all of our manifestations, the good parts of ourself, the bad parts of ourself, and coming to terms with these shadows and with these truths, because how we are interdependent with our own mind and with our own soul and with our own body impacts how we will show up in the world, in our families and in our churches and in our community halls and all sorts of other places. So let's think about how we might consider interdependence as a virtue to seek rather than independence and being disconnected or disillusioned by how we are or who we are or what our expectations are for ourselves and for the world. There is a loud and egotistical debate going on in America right now about making America great again. Popular politicians like to suggest that somehow America is not as great as it once was, whereas other politicians are ready and able to say, no, America is great. Regardless of where you stand in this argument, perhaps it would be worthwhile to think about what it means to say that we are greater than someone else or that we are better than other people who do not live in our nation, and what sorts of boundaries and potential harm such greatness allows. Sadly, I think what's happening in American culture is in many ways an adolescent understanding of our connections to ourselves as human beings, to the source of creation that has placed us here, and our interdependence upon, I'll use the term God, but you could use the term divine or whatever. And that when our small selves or our egos get in charge, it is very easy for us to think, kind of like teenagers, that we can do anything, anytime, anywhere that we want. In terms of interdependence or independence, we might think about the holy value of holy will, because what's at the heart of this is the theme or virtue of surrender. When we surrender our egotistical views of the world, or that we are great and therefore we can make great things happen, we loosen the belief that we're indispensable to making such things happen. And we live with greater humility, which places us in proper perspective to the universe. The holy idea of holy origin also talks about interdependence versus independence, because that theme suggests that we are never separate from the source of the universe or the source of our ground in being. People who believe that they are independent or individual tend to be quite emotional, and this egoistic agenda sustains the desire to be different, to be unique, to be independent. However, what is true in America and elsewhere is that we are waves in a ground of being, and we are never in and of ourselves alone or unique to the extent that we are divided from other people, other nations, or the universe itself, regardless of how large the walls are that we build. I like to spend a bit of time in each one of my podcasts weaving in learnings from the Circle Way. Principles in the Circle Way include a person's ability to listen attentively, to speak intentionally, and to consider their well-being as well as the well-being of the group. So as we celebrate independence in the United States, my hope is that we will create circles of trust, circles of wellness, circles where people don't need walls of division. Rather, we use conversations to seek how we can enable one another to create a nation that our founders sought for us to live in and to enjoy freely. It is through such values, along with deep understanding of ourselves, that I believe we will grow and flourish. Robert Kennedy is also quoted as saying, "Each time a man stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current that can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance." My prayer for independence in our nation this year will reflect the interdependent understanding that Robert Kennedy offers in his words. Thank you for listening today. Thank you for following the podcast. If you think it is valuable, please share the links with your friends and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and on Podbean, and invite them to do so as well. Until the next time, may the blessings of God bless, keep, and provide you this day and always. And until we talk again, bye-bye.